Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into the political landscape of two influential European nations, the Germany and the France. We will be exploring their political attitudes and behavior, looking at the political interests and identity, political culture and political efficiency, the trust, knowledge, and participation. Plus, we will be discussing what makes the democracy work in these countries and suggest a future direction for their political attitudes and behavior. Let's get started. Before we dive into our case study, let us give you a general overview of political attitude and the behavior as well. What is political attitude? Political attitude refers to the view and opinion of an individual about the political issue, leaders, institutions, and events. And what is political behavior? Political behavior refers to the actions and activities of individuals related to politics, including voting, protesting, and campaigning as well. In recap, they're all about how citizens in a country engage with politics, whether they trust the system, and if they feel that their participation matters. It also involves staying informed about what's happening around them. Let's begin with political interest and identity. How engaged are people in political in these two nations, and what shape their political identities? In France, French citizens tends to have a strong national identity and more passionate, even confrontational, approach to the politics. They readily express dissatisfaction and participate in protests. In Germany, political interest is generally from moderate to high. Many Germans are actively engaging in political process with strong alignment to traditional parties, such as Christian Democratic Union, known as CUD, Social Democratic Party, known as SPD, Greens, and Free Democratic Parties, also known as FDP. German political identities is deeply influenced by the country history, particularly in the division and unification of East and West Germany. In France, political interest is also high, though it can be more volatile. French political identity often centers around left-right division, with strong affiliation to parties such as La République Marquise, also known as LREM, the Republican, also known as LR, Socialist Party, also known as PS, and the National Rally, also known as RN. The country revolutionary history and tradition of security heavily influenced French political identity. Now, let's talk about political culture. What's the value and norm characterize political life in Germany and France? German political culture values stability, order, and consensus. The social market economy and federalism are central to this culture. After post-World War II, democracy in Germany fostered a contagious optimism with a strong focus on preventing extremism. French political culture, on the other hand, is more confrontational and emphasized individualism and state intervention. Direct action and public demonstration are seen as a legitimate form of political expression. France's centralized political system contrasts that Germany federalism, leading to different governance approach. Political efficiency. How much people feel that their participation matters and can influence the political outcome. That is another crucial aspect. Do Germans and French citizens believe that they can influence the political outcome? As you might guess, it's a complex issue with layers of history, psychological factors, and ongoing debate. Germans generally have a high sense of political efficiency. This belief and impact of their participation is reflected in the steady voters' turnout and active involvement in local governance and civil society. The recent studies by the OECD suggest a potential decline in external political efficiency, particularly after the reunification. In more simple terms, some Germans feel that the political system doesn't represent their interests as effectively as it once did. The East under one-party system for decades might have lower sense of efficiency compared to the West with longer democratic tradition. So despite this concern, Germany still boasts a relatively high voters turnout compared to many other European countries. This suggests at least some Germans believe voting still holds some sway. Additionally, there's a growing trend of citizen participation at the local level through initiative and community group. For example, the Youth Policy Days, a forum where 1,000 young people can meet with the federal government, which is the key component for the participation at the federal level to facilitate the dialogue between youth and politics, and to further promote youth policy awareness in politics and administration. This points towards a potential shift in engagement, with the citizens seek alternative ways to make their voice heard. French citizens often exhibit a lower sense of political efficiency, feeling that the political system is more resistant to change. This perception contributes to the frequent political protests and movement outside the traditional party politics. While the country boasts a vibrant democratic tradition, research suggests a trend of declining faith in the ability of citizens to influence the political outcome. Internal political efficiencies in France remain relatively stable, as many citizens feel informed and capable of participating in political activities. However, external political efficiencies have been challenged by recent political events and government action, particularly those perceived as a top-down or authoritarian. The presidency of Emmanuel Macron have been particularly illustrative of these dynamics. The Macron administration often been criticized for its perceived aloofness and technocratic approach, which has led to a series of high-profile protests and public dissents. For instance, the Yellow Vest movement was partially fueled by the sense of disenfranchisement among ordinary citizens who felt their voice was being ignored by the government. Furthermore, French political life has entered a period of unprecedented uncertainty since Emmanuel Macron announced the dissolution of the National Assembly on the Sunday, June 9th. Political trust is essential for the functioning democracy. How do Germany and France compare in this regard? Political trust in Germany has reached on the low level in recent years, reflecting significant public dissatisfaction with the states and institutions. For instance, a survey by the German Civil Service Federation found that only 20% of respondents believe that state can effectively meet the obligation, a stark decline from the confidence level seen during the pandemic years. Additionally, political trust varies significantly across different regions and institutions. In former East German states, the trust is especially pronounced, in many drawing parallels to the society moods before the collapse of GDR in the late 1980s. Trust in the Bundestag, Germany's federal parliament, has also plummeted, in nearly two-thirds of Germans expressing a lack of confidence in these institutions. All in all, declining rate of political trust in Germany poses a significant challenge for the democratic institutions. In France, political trust remains low, with the widespread skepticism toward the political elites and institutions. This distrust often manifests in strike, protests, and support for the populist movement. As of this year, 2024, the fragmentation and paralyzation within the National Assembly has heavily affected political trust. The presence of radical left and right group has led to increase of political instability and a perception that the government is more focused on the internal conflict that is on effective governance. This was evident during the legislative election, where the significant gain by the populist parties underscored the electorate dissatisfaction with the traditional politics elites. A recent study published by HAL has stated that the trust in France's multi-level government system varies significantly depending on the level of government. While local government tends to enjoy relatively higher trust, national and the EU level face greater skepticism. This suggests that citizens feel more connected and more trustful to the institutions closer to their daily lives. The reason why so many citizens do not trust the system may be that French politics is traditionally president-centric, and as for the result, less democratic and more technocratic. Some would say that political parties in the National Assembly may make it more democratic. However, democracy is more than just how well or poorly political views are presented. It is, above all, accountability. Let's demonstrate the political interest and knowledge. How well informed are the citizens of these two countries? Germans display a high level of political knowledge, supported by a very powerful education system and widespread political engagement. In the term of political education, there is no other countries that has done and countries to do as much as Germany to educate the citizens about the democracy. The cause of this specialty obviously lies in the history of the 1900s and after the defeat of the 1945, and the will of the winner to convince the German, or maybe perhaps force, to change their mentality, in which is their political culture. The media and the public discourse extensively addressing the political issue. The Germany, on the other hand, had the press, the radio, and the television enshrined in the country basic law, which is the most prominent body of the law in the country. The central role of the press in supplying information to the German population is underlined by the fact that journalists have the legal rights to the information from the state. Even though the government institutions are at the level of federal, state, or municipal level, they still have the duty to answer the question of the press. These include the parliament, courts, authorities, and bodies such as the police. France has a very rich political heritage that has shaped its current system of the government and influenced its policies and priorities. French citizens also shows a high political interest and knowledge with an intellectual debate that is a prominent feature of the French political life, reflecting a traditional philosophical engagement. However, French media consumption tends to be more paralyzed. The reason that leads to this paralyzation of French media is that France has a broad political spectrum ranging from far to left and to the far to right, including various centrist and moderate positions. Media outlets often cater to a specific segment of this spectrum, reflecting and amplifying the political division. Moreover, French intellectuals traditionally play a significant role in public discourse. Many are associated with particular ideologies and a political movement, and their involvement in media contribute to its paralyzed nature. Lastly, let's talk about political participation. How do Germans and French citizens participate in their democracy? Many political participations include high voters turnout, active involvement in political parties, and engagement in civil society organizations. Many Germans participate in local governance and community initiatives. Germany has a number of participation schemes that offer many different ways and means for people to engage. In many cases, participation is formally required by law. Informal participation opportunities also increasingly being developed, first at the local level, but more recently also at the national level. It is now widely accepted that planning can be improved if the population local knowledge is interrogated from the outset. More recently, the German national government opened up about the nationwide participation process of the civil society when it was trying to locate an urgently needed, safe, and final repository site for the radioactive waste. In France, political participation is marked by a high voters turnout in presidential election, even though local elections see less engagement. Political participations in France has been downward trends for decades, but presidential election was usually the one where people should show up. Protests and strikes are a common form of political participation, reflecting a culture of direct action. Citizens often view protests and strikes as a legitimate means in influence government policies and express discontent. This participatory approach is a core aspect of French democracy. So what makes the democracy works in these countries? Democracy thrives on action, political participation, trust in institutions, political efficiencies, and a well-informed electorate. In Germany, stability, high political efficiency, and trust in institutions foster a strong democratic environment. In France, dynamic political engagement and a culture of debate and protest keeping the democratic process vibrant, even though lower trust in institutions pose challenges. Looking ahead, what are the future directions for political attitudes and behavior in Germany and France? In Germany, it's crucial to encourage greater engagement among the younger generation to sustain a high political participation rate. Addressing challenges like digital transformation and climate change throughout the inclusive policy making and integrating immigrant population into the political process will be vital. In France, improving political trust by increasing transparency and accountability in governance is essential. Fostering political engagement beyond protest by encouraging participation in local and national elections. And addressing the socio-economic disparities that fuel the populist sentiment and political polarization will be okay. To sum it all up, while Germany and France have distinct political attitudes and behavior, both countries still contribute to their democracies by resilience and vibrancy. By enhancing political engagement, trust, and inclusivity, they can ensure that it's continue the success of their democratic system. Thank you for watching and see you next time.